Every one of you in this room has a story of success that you could share. You could share a story of success about this place that could help someone else thrive. I'm here to talk today with you for a few minutes about the stories that connect us, that make us all more successful in this place. The stories that you might think of when I ask you to think about your own stories could be something you did on your own. You might be the first in your family, for example, to have graduated from college. That would be a success. You may have been someone who dreamed of hiking in the enchantments and actually did it for a whole week. You may also have dreamed of overcoming your fear of public speaking to give a TED Talk. These things happen. We all have goals and we all reach them. I know you all have success stories. Other success stories that you might be thinking of are things that you pursued with others. You may be teaching immigrants to teach and also to read. You may also have worked with your fellow community members to raise money to buy an old building that's like an icon in your community. You may have worked with your family to protect your fifth-generation ranch from subdivision. So your stories have the power to change people's lives, to influence their lives, when you take time to share them. Altogether, when you look at the stories of North Central Washington, it's a really huge and undocumented asset in our region. And it's an asset that is largely, that needs to be recorded and shared so that others can be inspired by the stories. If you think about your success stories, they've been built on other success stories. And someone else that you know had the guts to go make a big trip that inspired you to go do the enchantments. Someone else you know may have inspired you by some beautiful artwork they did. So your stories are part of a larger network then that provides building blocks for us all as we move forward in North Central Washington and other parts of the world. The story network that I'm talking about is the oldest communication system in the world. There is no monthly fee. You simply need to take stories that come to you, pass them on to others, keep those that are relevant, and set them aside for a rainy day when you might need them. One thing that we know is true, and we know that will happen today, is that the more we take our success stories and connect them with other people, the stronger we are as a community. Those stories can be about an act of courage, acts of generosity. Certainly cooperation is a big theme, integrity, all those things that make life better. When we share those stories with each other, we're stronger, our community's stronger. The stronger our community is, by connecting through story, the more resilient we are to change. We're making good use of our assets. So I'm with an organization called IRIS, as Clint said, and we've been working with partners across the region for several years now to gather and record success stories. We believe that gathering and sharing success stories enhances a sense of belonging, inspires action, and builds community. Those are three things everyone needs to be successful in a region or in your life. We've got about 250 interviews, recorded interviews in our archives so far. we really would like to grow the number of interviews. If we just did an interview with everyone in this room right now, it would be a huge addition. So I want to talk with you later about how we might grow that number, how we might increase the number of success stories in our regional story box. But first, I just want to take a few minutes to talk about the power of actually doing the interviews. It's great to have the stories, but actually the process of gathering the stories is hugely empowering and something I think we can all participate in. So there's values, obviously, to the interviewer and to the interviewee, the people engaged in the conversation. For the most part, and no, not for the most part, as a fundamental aspect of this work, it's based on trust, respect, and builds understanding and relationships. Every interview that we do and our partners does is set towards that goal. That's the outcome that we want. So the values that transpire between the interviewer and the interviewee have a lot to do with that. When you respectfully listen to someone, answer your questions about their background, what they love about this place, what their successes are, some of the things that they're most proud of. When you respectfully listen to them, they tell you more. When you ask follow-up questions, you learn more. So it's a great dance. And the KID president says, you know, it's time to dance. I totally agree with him. And interviewing is a kind of a dance platform, kind of a nice interchange between two people. So what's it do for the person being interviewed? It is really great to be heard, to have someone listen to what you have to say. We all want to be understood. That's a very basic human desire. And so people appreciate having a chance to reflect on their memories and just to be heard. But in that process of reflecting on their memories, they also get a chance to think about things from another angle. And I'm thinking of one of these 250 interviews that my organization has done in the last few years. There's a quote from one of those interviews by Jim Small, and it was interviewing him about the ski area in the Untitled Valley quite a few years ago, which he participated in as a community member. They built this thing in the 60s and 70s, a rope tow ski area, and operated it as a bunch of community volunteers. And he said something that's just stuck with me all these years. He said, "We seldom gave up on a good idea." And I love that quote, and I think about it a lot. It actually really relates to TED, but it really relates to the Untitled community, where Jim has done a lot of other things besides help build a ski area. That community's story is all about persistence and teamwork. And I think he saw that when I was interviewing him just about the history of the ski area. So people get a chance to reflect on their successes. It's not something that we are trained to do on a daily basis, and so it's helpful to have somebody kind of pull it out of you a little bit. There are a lot of values associated with interviewing for the interviewer. I mean, it's fun. It is just so fun to sit and talk with people about their successes. So what do we get out of it? We get knowledge, certainly. We get knowledge. We're inspired by what people tell us. And we do get a window into opportunities we might not have seen before. So it's a very energizing process for both the interviewer and the interviewee. And Steve King, who you'll hear from later, has told me that there's probably about 80,000 eligible interviewees in the greater Wenatcee Valley. So to me, that's like a sustainable energy source. if we could sort of like get our infrastructure together and get all these interviews going, there are going to be a lot of people walking with a happier step in North Central Washington, because it is just fun to do interviews, to engage with people at that level. Another thing that is so important to, I think, all of us, people who have lived here for a long time and people like me who are becoming naturalized, I've been here 14 years now, is stories help ground you in a place. If you know stories and you know them well enough that you can share them with someone else, you're feeling at home. You know your way around. It's a storied landscape. It's not just a map where you're looking at Highway 97 and Highway 2. It's a place where things happen. And so I think about stories that I've heard from Wilfred Woods, helped me develop a sense of place here by telling me about the 1948 floods and how they changed not only Wenatcee, it's changes you can still see indications of today when you're on the riverfront, but also North Central Washington, big changes. I also think about stories that I heard from Pat Stout, who grew up in a dairy farm in Leavenworth, about the whole network of dairies that used to be in Lake Wenatchee, Plain, Chumstick, Leavenworth, Dryden, Peshastin, Cashmere, right on down the valley. Today there are a few barns out there, but we don't have those dairies anymore. So that's a change. They've been replaced by other land uses. Another story that I think about a lot, because I drive around the region a lot, Mary Ellen Wax talked about her grandmother in the 1890s, how she would ride her horse across the Waterville Plateau where their ranch was, down to the Columbia and cross the river on a ferry then to go to the store to sell eggs. Well, every time I drive over BB Bridge now, I'm with Mary Ellen Wax's grandmother, thinking, what did the river look like? You know, when there was just a ferry there, and it's just, so it excites your imagination knowing these stories, and the whole place comes to life, and the person that helps you do that is the person you're interviewing. So what a gift, and it's so affordable. We should be doing more of it. So there are a lot of values to individuals involved in this process. There's also a lot of value to families. If we did nothing else but do an interview and then give a copy of that interview to the family, this work would be worth doing. But the family listens to the interview. They sometimes learn some new things. They connect some dots. They heard a missing part of the story in that interview that they just hadn't pulled out before. But then the family is left with a copy of the interview so they can listen to the person's voice. They can listen to their laugh. And Faye McKee was the father of a friend of mine, Mike McKee. He just recently passed away. And Mike told me what a deep connection that is for him, having his dad's voice on a CD, more meaningful than a photo. So those are real connections that with families and interviewing too. So organizations, I've worked for a large organization that changes fast, and now I work for a very small organization that's still changing fast. Our world moves at the speed of light, and we sometimes lose track of our own story. And so working with your organization, be it a school district or a Front Street business, whatever your organization is, it's worth taking a moment to capture your story, the history of your organization, your strengths, your values, and then you've got that. You can share it with your staff, with board members, with people coming up behind us. It's your story. It's worth passing on. Others can learn from it. So that brings me to community. There's a tremendous amount that can be gained for communities that engage in interviewing. I've already talked about for individuals, for families, for organizations. All that rolls up into community. Community, in an interviewing process, has a chance to learn about past land use and how those land uses affect what we see today. That affects decisions that community might make about where to develop, where to put agriculture, and what lands need to be conserved. So understanding the context in which a community lives and grows can come through stories. And those stories are really best captured by the people that live there. It's our story. We need to gather that story, make it our own. It's not a passive endeavor. You gotta get in there, just like the kid, you know? And so we have an opportunity here to be awesome, as our KID president suggested. And I know it's within the capacity of this community to do it. We can only gather so many stories, those of us that are doing this. We need help to really bring this project to scale, to really build a habit in our region where we're gathering and sharing stories as a regular part of life. So if we look at the organizations throughout our community that are already doing some interviewing, such as employment agencies, the schools, colleges, lots of us are out there looking and tell students and others to go out and look for someone that's doing something that you are interested in. Talk to them, learn more about it. So I'm suggesting that where we're already doing that, let's record those stories in a way where they can be archived. The life skills for students that you learn through the interviewing process, the life skills for any of us, you don't have to be enrolled in an educational program. The life skills alone are worth doing it. But there's this additional bonus that you're going to gather that story, put it in our community story box, and pass it on for the next generation to pull out and be inspired by it. So I would invite you to think about other organizations that are already doing some interviewing or could be doing interviewing to make their operations run better, to provide development opportunities for their staff and volunteers. Assisted living centers are one. Our healthcare network is another one. A great, big, very successful part of our community is our healthcare network. It's full of success stories, from physical therapists and masseuses to MDs that are family practitioners or surgeons. There are a lot of success stories out there that inspire and energize both patients and the caregivers. So those are the kinds of things that we would invite you to help with and help us gather our stories of success so that we can be a stronger community and we can be resilient to the changes that we know are coming. So thank you very much.